for that intro. And I'm really pleased to be here to talk about the province's initiative, large energy, building energy and water reporting. So it's an Ontario regulation, 50618, and it came into force January 1st, although it existed prior to that under the Green Energy Act. On January 1st, 2019, EWRB was reintroduced under the Electricity Act, and it requires Ontario building owners of commercial, industrial, multi-unit residential, and other building types that are at least 50,000 square feet or larger to report their buildings' energy and water consumption annually to the Ministry of Energy, Northern Development, and Mines. So the Ministry will make some of this data publicly available as outlined in the regulation in the second year of reporting. So folks that are reporting in the first year will report their data, but will not see results until after they've reported in the second year. So the value of building benchmarking. So Nathaniel talked a little about this, but in some of our jurisdictional scans, the ministry has found that energy use is one of the largest operating expenses in commercial and residential buildings, representing typically about a third of the building's operating budget. And a number of studies have shown as much as a 30% decrease in energy use in commercial buildings and implemented a small number of energy efficiency strategies and monitoring systems. So the value in EWRB is it compiles the information that building owners and managers need to understand how their energy and water is being used. The largest barrier to identifying cost efficiencies in a building is lack of access to data, that you need to measure and track your energy performance. And we did take a look at other jurisdictions that have energy reporting ordinances or requirements, regulations, and the vast majority of buildings in those jurisdictions have taken steps to improve their performance. And that's just by investing in lower, no-cost changes. So just taking a look at jurisdictions in the US, there are about 25 that we're aware of that have reporting requirements. And we looked at a few major jurisdictions that have shown demonstrated savings. Chicago, Illinois, over a 5-year period between 2010 and 15, showed an average of 10% energy reduction. New York City, between 6 and 14%, depending on the building sector. San Francisco, about 7.9% over 4 years. Minneapolis, 7% over 4 years. And Seattle, 2.7%. And we mentioned Seattle as an example because in all jurisdictions, in all cases, the energy savings in the first and second and third years were low, but incrementally they would rise over time. And so there's value in reporting and benchmarking, not just on a single, on a single year basis, but over time. You can see value accumulated. And these are just results of a survey conducted by NEMA on building benchmarking transparency ordinances in the US and some of their impacts. So 84% of buildings that participated in benchmarking, as I mentioned, made low or no-cost operational changes, and 82% invested in new equipment that supports manufacturing and construction jobs. So, studies have shown the benefits of energy reporting and benchmarking. In Ontario, the implementation timeline for EWRB is a phased approach. So as of July 1st, 2018, commercial and industrial buildings over 250,000 square feet were required to report. Last year, there were about 600 of those buildings that reported. In this year, year 2, by this July 1st, 2019, commercial, industrial, multi-unit residential buildings that are over 100,000 square feet will be required to report. And we believe they're in the neighborhood of about 6,000 of those buildings. By year 3, July 1st, 2020, commercial, industrial, multi-unit residential buildings that are over 50,000 square feet will be required to report. And in Ontario, that could number in about the 18,000 building range. So this is just a little map of Ontario showing where we believe the concentration of buildings are that will be required to report. So this is just based on impact data that the ministry has purchased that tells us approximately where large buildings are placed in the province. And you'll see the concentration of buildings that are at least 100,000 square feet are in the Greater Toronto area, kind of the horseshoe around the GTA, as well as in Ottawa and in the Sudbury area. And then you'll see buildings in other communities, fewer in number, but as far north as Timmins, even Kapuskasing, over Thunder Bay, Fort Francis, and down in Windsor. So, buildings of 100,000 square feet or larger exist all over the province, but are largely concentrated in the urban areas. So the largest property categories that we expect to report in year 2. In the residential sector, residential condominiums, about 2,000, multi-residential, about 1,100, and smaller multi-residential townhome types, just over 300. In the industrial sector, we have standard industrial category under MPAC, as well as warehousing, industrial mall, and other industrial that will be required to report, about 2,000 of those buildings. And then finally, in the commercial sector, large office buildings, community shopping centers, neighborhood shopping centers, and big box power centers will be required to report in year 2. And this is just a little graph showing by municipalities. Some municipalities and utilities especially are interested in knowing the volume of reporting activity to expect in their area. So you can see in Toronto there are just under 2,600 buildings that we expect will be reporting in year 2. Mississauga, almost 1,000. And then across the board, the other large municipalities that will have quite a number of buildings reporting are Ottawa, Brampton, London, Hamilton, Vaughan, Burlington, Oakville, Markham, Kitchener, Windsor. And in the final column, there are about 250 municipalities that will have 100 or less or fewer buildings reporting. So the roles in EWRB, the key roles are for building owners and distributors, which are electric, natural gas, and water utilities. Building owners are responsible to determine whether they're required to comply and report annually. And a building owner that has multiple buildings on a single property needs to determine whether they'll report each building separately or whether they'll report their property as a whole. And also a key decision point is deciding who will be responsible for reporting, whether it's the building owner themselves, a property manager, or someone that they employ to report for them. Utility distributors are responsible to provide building owners or their designated reporting leads when they're requested to do so with the whole building consumption data for that person's building. So that is aggregated information on how much electricity or natural gas or water is consumed at that property. So in understanding the requirement, a building owner or deciding whether they need to report, they need to look at the size of the building. So buildings that are under 50,000 square feet will not be required to report under this regulation, regardless of whether they're individually metered or bulk metered. So for an example, in a plaza that has numerous buildings under and over 50,000 square feet, only the buildings in that plaza that are 50,000 square feet and larger will be required to report. And so that's consistent with the intent from the beginning when the regulation was drafted. Building owners also have the option to report at the building level as an alternative to reporting at the property level. So what that means is that if there are numerous buildings on one property, sometimes a property owner will decide to report in aggregate. And often that's a function of the metering of the property. So there may be one bulk meter serving a property with several buildings. And it may be easier for that property owner to report at the property level. Where there's sub-metering or where there are meters on individual buildings, it's always better to report at the building level because you'll get better data from that. So in either case, building owners do need to provide information to the ministry on the size and use of their individual buildings so that we can assign an EWRB number to each building. And so the EWRB is tied to reporting and portfolio manager. So what does a building owner need to report? They need to know the gross floor area of their single building or structure, and that's defined as the total number of square feet as measured between the exterior surfaces of enclosed fixed walls. So the area includes places inside the building, such as common areas, elevator shafts, just whatever is inside the enclosed area of the building. So that includes atriums, elevator shafts, mechanical equipment areas, and so forth. So we've had, the ministry has had a lot of questions about calculating a building's gross floor area. You know, how do I determine or how do I decide the gross floor area of my building? It may be available from existing records like blueprints or architectural plans. In many cases, we hear those aren't available. And so if they're not in building owner's records, the building owner can calculate the gross floor area by multiplying the measured length, width, and number of floors in the building. And so there's an example here of a two-story building with a ground floor area that's 200 feet by 350 feet, or 70,000 square feet. And it's 2 stories tall. So that 70,000 square feet times 2 stories gives that building a gross floor area of 140,000 square feet. So that building would be required to report this year. There's another example here of a building of varying sizes. So there's a part with 4 stories and 5 stories. And sorry, it looks like those are flipped. So Part A, 5 stories, 80,000 square feet. That's 80 feet by 200 feet, square feet. 16,000 square feet times 5 stories is 80,000 square feet. And the section that's 80 feet by 80 feet, 6,400 square feet, by 4 stories tall is 25,600 square feet. So again, this building would be required to report with a gross floor area of 105,600 square feet. And just a note on parking areas, the gross floor area doesn't include exterior, unroofed or open air spaces, such as an outdoor parking area. But underground parking is something that is reported in Portfolio Manager, although it's not reported as part of a building's gross floor area, it's reported as a separate value. So underground parking does need to be measured and reported in Portfolio Manager. And I guess the primary reason for that is that underground parking does consume energy in the form of ventilation and sometimes heating ramps and lighting for sure. So underground parking is reported, but it's not calculated as part of the building's gross floor area. So in terms of deciding who will be responsible to report for the building, the property owner first needs to designate a reporting lead to submit the report and determine if it needs verification this year. And we kind of highlight this point as well because that reporting lead, when they're reaching out to contact the ministry and utilities for information, will be asked to perform a validation to prove their association with that building and their entitlement to receive information about that building. So the reporting lead could typically be a property owner or a property manager, a condo board member or an occupant of a condominium, an energy manager, administrative support person, someone who pays the bills for the building. So a reporting lead requesting data from a utility may be asked to provide documented proof they're authorized to request usage data for privacy reasons. And so most commonly a utility will ask for a letter signed by the owner of the building or some information from a current utility bill. The ministry has developed a reporting checklist. It's not posted yet, but check our website. You'll soon see this posted as a resource for building owners reporting or property managers reporting for EWRB. And reporting checklist just sets out the 5 key steps in reporting. The 5 key steps are, first, get your EWRB ID from the ministry. And second, collect your reporting information, your building's usage data, and your building's use type data. The third step is to open your portfolio manager account and enter your data in the account. Fourth step is to verify your data if that's required, and under regulation, that's a requirement for buildings that are 100,000 square feet or larger. And the final step is to submit your report to the ministry by July 1st of each year. And it's important before you submit your report to be sure that you've entered all your building information data correctly, and you've run the data quality checker to be sure that you're submitting accurate data for that building. So at this point, I would like to invite my colleague from the City of Toronto up. Munim is going to talk about support that the City of Toronto is providing for building owners reporting.
Thanks, Daniel, for having myself and speak to EWRB this morning. So the City of Toronto is an advocate promoter and implementation facilitator for EWRB. Energy benchmarking disclosure is something Toronto City Council is seeing valuing as a step to our GHG reduction targets. Benchmarking and disclosure is something we've identified as a GHG reduction enabler in our climate change action strategy, Transform. So I'll just take a few minutes to have a couple of slides. I want to focus on the services and the support we can provide to City of Toronto buildings in helping comply with the regulation. So just to start with, we have a website, toronto.ca/EWRB, which is a bit more specialized version of the checklist that Linda just showed us, focusing on City of Toronto buildings, so utility links, how to calculate your gross floor area, reporting links as they become available. So we are trying to make it a one-stop place for reporters in the City of Toronto. I also have a link for our water tools. So as part of EWRB, you are also required to report on water consumption data. So for Toronto Water, all our water meters are, the data is available anytime online, 24/7. All you require is a copy of your water bill. So this is a link to our tool where you can access water bill information anytime without any formal request process. And again, my contact information is here as well. If you have any questions about whether your building is to comply, doesn't comply starting this year, I can help you with that as well. So feel free to call me or email me below. And here I just have a screenshot from the website. These are the steps that you would follow if you were a building located in the City of Toronto to comply. Updating your contact information. We have links to the utility data request forms right here. So for electricity, gas, water, and steam, if you're a building consumes anyway gas. We understand with water, in a lot of cases, building owners aren't directly involved in paying for the bills. In that case, the tenant might have access to your water bills or your account information. So in that case, you can reach out to us as well. We can provide you with login information to use a tool, or if you have more than 3 water accounts, we can also help you aggregate the data. And yeah, that's what the city is focusing on right now, just helping reduce the burden for our building owners to report, help the ministry implement the program, deliver EWRB within the City of Toronto. And moving forward, once the disclosure starts to happen, like Linda mentioned, after second-year reporting, we do have plans to engage building owners in the next steps from disclosure. A lot of stuff that Daniel spoke about as well. And we have plans to produce a GIS map of the city with the EUIs down here, and also some low-hanging fruits that you can reach out for to reduce your energy consumption from either area.
Thanks, Munim. And the EWRB team really appreciates the support that the city provides to building owners. It's been extremely helpful in supporting building owners reporting, and we saw in the first year of compliance that Toronto had significantly increased compliance over other jurisdictions, and we're sure that's as a direct result of this support. So we encourage any other municipalities that support EWRB to consider reviewing Toronto's approach and some of the methods they use because they've been really successful. So it's great. Thanks, Munim. And before I conclude, I just also want to mention the province's announcement on February 5th, 2019 of Ontario's data strategy. And the province states its key objectives with the data strategy are to put data at the heart of every decision made in designing and administering public services. With the data strategy, the current government is looking to create economic benefits and an environment where Ontario businesses can seize and develop data-driven business models and use the commercial value of the data from their business. So EWRB obviously complements these data strategy objectives. And if you're looking for more information on the government's data strategy, including their plans for public consultation, you can find them at ontario.ca, search for Ontario's data strategy, and you'll find details in the open government pages. So with that, I'll just summarize on with EWRB. The EWRB team is available for any questions or support you need in reporting your building data consumption. You can contact us by phone at 1-844-274-0689, or there's a dedicated email address, ewrbsupport@ontario.ca. That's also where you get your Ontario EWRB ID, which is a unique number assigned to each large building. We advise you to contact your energy and water utilities well in advance of the reporting deadline of July 1st to get the information you need to report. Utilities often need some time to create the aggregated data that you'll need for reporting. And in fact, they encourage building owners to contact them as early in the new year as is feasible to get this information. If you know the owner of a large building that's not heard of the regulation, encourage them to contact us for more information. And this will help to ensure we have current contact information for all large buildings. Talk to your industry colleagues about EWRB reporting requirement, and do encourage them to contact the EWRB team for more information. So we are also always looking for learning, success stories, issues and challenges in reporting, and we encourage people to contact us with those. About a week and a half ago, the ministry issued what we call a time to report email. So it's a notification to building owners that they should get started reporting. And we've had a lot of feedback from property managers and people who are reporting, giving us, I guess, ideas of some of the challenges they're facing, and also, just looking for advice and support in reporting. So we're there to help. So for more information, these are the contact links for an overview of EWRB, to update your property owner contact information, or to file an exemption notice if you believe your building is exempt from reporting. There's training available on how to use Portfolio Manager, and again, the phone line for questions, and email to submit questions to the ministry.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So today I'm going to be talking about ISO 50001 energy management systems and how getting certified can help you to get certified with excellence in energy management. Most likely, I'm assuming most of you have heard of ISO 50001. It is a relatively new standard. It was first published back in 2011. And just last year, the second revision came out, ISO 50001-2018. So we'll just dive right into it. So why consider an energy management system in the first place? Well, just regulations, as was mentioned, the EWRB, also rising energy costs, the volatility that I'm sure you've seen in energy prices and costs, and also, for instance, the carbon tax, which was recently announced. We'll see what the impact of that one's going to be, but essentially it's that changing landscape that we're witnessing in terms of energy cost and the volatility that we're seeing in that area. And energy management system can help you mitigate that and help you improve your energy performance and in terms of reducing your energy consumption, reducing your efficiency, and so forth. So basically, historically, what we've seen is when there is no energy management system, over time, the final energy use or consumption just continues to rise. However, when an organization embeds an energy management system, they're not only able to reduce their consumption, improve their performance, but more importantly, they're able to maintain the savings that they've accrued over time. So historically, there's been an ad hoc approach to energy management. What happens is a lot of companies, they notice that their consumption costs are rising, and then they take action. It's more like a reactive approach. And then they're able to bring down their consumption and costs. But because there's no persistence, there's no commitment, over time they're not able to maintain the savings that they've accrued. So they see a rise again, and then as you can see, it kind of turns into a roller coaster where their consumption, their costs rise, and then they have to take action again in order to reduce that. But when you have an embedded energy management system, it's a structured approach. So basically, energy management system becomes part of the company's culture. They're able to reduce their consumption, improve their performance, and more importantly, maintain that over time. So what is ISO 50001? It's an energy management system, and it's a voluntary international framework for the management of energy in any business size. It can be small, medium, or large, for industrial, commercial, or institutional. And it basically helps companies to improve their energy performance, ultimately resulting in reducing their emissions as well as their operational costs. So some of the benefits of energy management include credible energy and cost savings with little or no capital expenditure. Studies have shown that, and these are just conservative estimates, about 10 to 15% energy cost savings come from non-capital projects through like simple process optimization. An additional 10 to 15% comes from capital projects that can help to improve the energy performance of a company. It reduces the exposure to energy price fluctuations. It helps with sustained energy efficiency, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and environmental impact, increase in regulatory obligations, as well as strengthening companies' brand value. And this is perhaps the most important part. It embeds a culture of persistence, discipline, and commitment, really committing to managing your energy system. And there are also external incentives available as well from the U.S. Department of Energy and Natural Resources Canada, which I'll talk more about later. So it's the ISO 50001 is very much based on the Plan, Do, Check Act. And those who are familiar with ISO management systems such as 9001 or 14001 environmental management systems, you've probably seen this cycle. So it starts out with planning. A company needs to establish a policy, they need to establish an energy plan, set their objectives and targets. Then they'll need to conduct training and awareness, basically communicate what the policy and the plan is to their employees and how their employees can help in terms of reaching those targets, documenting it, conducting operational control, then doing checking, monitoring and measuring is very key, conducting internal audits, and also seeing if there's been any non-conformities in terms of perhaps not reaching the targets that they've set, and what kind of preventative and corrective action they can take in order to achieve those targets that they've set. And then ultimately, the act phase is recording this back to management for review and input. ISO 50001 is compatible, and there is quite a bit of overlap with other significant major ISO standards, such as 9001 or 14001. So ISO 50001 does have some unique elements that are data-driven, such as energy review, energy performance indicators, establishing an energy baseline. But where it overlaps with 14001 and 9001, especially comes to management commitments, such as roles and responsibility, confidence, and communication. So those companies that have already implemented or certified to 9001, and in particular 14001, they'll probably have an easier time in terms of integrating 50001 with the existing ISO management system. So the requirements of 50,001 includes conducting an energy review. An energy review can be reviewing your bill for the, let's say, the last 12 months. It includes taking a look at your significant energy uses. Now, some examples of a significant energy use, let's say in a building, such as an office, retail, or warehouse, would be water heating, lighting, heating and cooling systems, pumping systems. Those are just some examples of significant energy use. In building complexes, such as healthcare facilities, educational campuses, an example of a significant energy use would be your centralized and district heating and cooling systems, water heating, HVAC, and so forth. Then you have to establish your energy baseline, so basically you just select a year, that's your baseline, and then you set your targets and objective against that baseline. So an example of an objective would be, for instance, reducing your facility energy costs. Corresponding target would be installing energy efficient lighting and training your staff. Those are just some examples, particularly in terms of commercial real estate. Then it includes implementing an action plan. So an example of an action plan might include a risk and opportunity register available within the organization to assess any future energy efficiencies. Now, one thing I want to talk about is continual energy performance improvement. Some people, when they hear that, they think that what that implies is, for instance, continually reducing your energy consumption year over year. Well, that's somewhat unrealistic. That's not what it means. It means that you are able to demonstrate that you are taking the steps in order to basically hit your objectives and targets. Now, there might be some circumstances that are beyond your control. For instance, you might have a year where you have a very hot summer or a cold winter, and that can impact your energy consumption inside your building. But if you're able to demonstrate that you're taking the necessary steps, you are basically conducting the actions, the requirements in terms of your measuring, monitoring, taking preventative and corrective action. And even if you're still not able to hit your objective, that's fine, because you've been able to demonstrate that you've taken the necessary actions and steps. Then it includes implementing the action plan. So an example would be personnel responsible for the organization's energy consumptions have been trained properly to perform the task. There are preventative methods in place to ensure that the company does not deviate from the energy policy targets and objectives. Then checking the performance, so monitoring, measuring, that's key. And documenting and reporting all of the above to management for review. So there's basically the model right there. It starts with establishing your energy policy, establishing your plan, energy plan, which commits the organization to continual energy performance improvement. You can also commit the company to adhere to comply with applicable laws, regulations, and other rules that will impact the organization's energy use. You have to implement the plan, which defines the methodologies for achieving improvement. Then it goes through the cycle of checking. So continually monitoring, measuring, again, checking your non-conformities, taking any necessary corrective and preventative actions, conducting internal audits, and reporting back to management for review and feedback. So just taking a look at some basically examples, these are some case studies of, in the commercial real estate sector, that have implemented and have become certified to ISO 50001. So this is off, actually, there is an organization called the Clean Energy Ministerial, and it's a global organization that works towards the adoption of 50001 globally in all sectors. And they have some really great business case studies on there. I was able to find, for instance, Helton, and they have a portfolio-wide ISO 50001 certification in 2014. That's when they became certified, 2014 for the first time, and it was for multiple facilities. They integrated it with their existing 9001 and 14001 certifications. So from 2008 until 2016, which was the improvement period, they realized savings of over $780 million on cumulative energy costs. Their energy performance improved by 18% over the improvement period. Their total energy savings was over 5 gigajoules. And their carbon emission reduction was close to 770 megatons. And the implementation took less than 12 months, and the payback was less than a year. The second example is Marriott, and this is only one facility, their hotel in Washington, D.C. They became certified to 50,001 as well a couple of years ago, and they were able to gain energy performance improvements of 16% over a 3-year improvement period. Their total energy cost savings was over $470,000 over the same period. They reduced their energy intensity by 13%. They set 2007 as their baseline, and they measured it in 2016. And they reduced their water intensity by over 7%, their emissions by 15%. And the implementation cost was $3.3 million. Now, why it was that high was because they invested in capital projects, particularly in terms of upgrading their equipment. But the implementation of the energy management system itself cost about $32,000. And the payback period for them was 7 years. Again, the reason it was that long was because of the capital expenditure that they invested. Now, just talking about some financial assistance that's available. Some of you might already know this. Natural Resources Canada does provide financial assistance of up to 50% of eligible costs to a maximum of $40,000 per facility for industrial, commercial, and institutional facilities. The maximum contribution that NRCan makes to an organization is $200,000 per fiscal year. And an approved project may cross several years, but the total level of support of funding that NRCan will provide cannot exceed $200,000 per project or per company. So the very maximum is $200,000. Some of the eligible costs include professional, scientific, and technical fees. So if you want to hire an external consultants, that's included in as one of the eligible costs. Fees with obtaining your ISO 50001 certification. So if you do decide to pursue third-party certification, that is also one of the eligible costs, and it's included in there, as well as the salaries of internal employees for implementing 50001. That's also included too. The U.S. Department of Energy, while they don't offer a financial assistance such as NRCan, they do have a free online software tool called ISO 50001 Ready Navigator. And basically, it's a step-by-step process of how a company can go about in terms of implementing the requirements of the standard. It's very straightforward, very easy to use. It's free, and even non-US based companies can use this. The link is right there, so you can just go on there, and it'll help you walk through it. And you can basically download each step, and basically download the checklist that will help you with the implementation process. ISO itself, they have published a guide called a Practical Guide for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. This one costs about $50 Canadian. You can purchase it online through ISO's website, either hard copy or digital. And basically, again, it's about 170 pages. It's very straightforward, and it walks through what the requirements are and how a company can go about implementing 50001. So that's another useful guide too that you can take into consideration. Now, some companies, they might decide to just implement 50001, and that NRCan grant, I should mention, basically is for companies who implement it. So even if you don't want to pursue third-party certification, that's fine. That NRCan grant will still apply. But if you want to actually go through and go right up until third-party certification and get your certificate, these are some of the benefits of third-party certification. This is from U.S. Department of Energy's website. And basically, it's using two companies as an example, 3M and Schneider Electric. So by looking at, for instance, 2015, which is the latest data, the green line is our, let's see, Schneider Electric facilities that are certified to 50,001. So they've been able to achieve energy performance improvement of about 19%. The blue one are those who have nearly implemented 50,001 or may just have some sort of internal energy management program. So they've been able to achieve performance improvement of close to 12% as well, but it's less than those companies that are certified. And the reason for that is because when you're certified each year, you have an auditor coming and verifying your system and your performance. So there is that third set of eyes that comes in once a year to make sure that you are adhering to the requirements of the standard. Also, one thing I wanted to mention too, in case if you want to pursue third-party certification, is basically, this is a question that comes up a lot as well, how long will it take and how much is it going to cost? So it really depends on 4 factors. One is the companies in terms of the amount of time that it takes to audit the company and the cost. Their annual energy consumption, their energy sources, so that could be electricity, natural gas, diesel, and so forth. There's significant energy uses, and the number of number of employees. Now, the effective number of employees, what that means are just those employees that are directly involved with the energy management system. So it doesn't mean all the employees in your company. So if you have, let's say, 500 employees, but only like 5 of them are directly involved with the energy, like managing the energy management system as a 50,001, then it's just based on the number of 5 employees, and the auditor will just go and intervene them. Also, if you have multi-sites, you have multiple sites, registrars, the certification body will sample those. So they're not going to, the auditor will not go and audit every single site. Basically, it's a very simple formula. It's the square root of the total number of sites that you have. So let's say if you have 4 sites, they'll only go and do an on-site visit of 2 of them, not all 4. So that significantly reduces the amount of time that's required to conduct the audit and for the cost as well. ISO publishes a report called the ISO survey every year, and basically they look at all the major standards like ISO 9001, quality management system, 14001, environmental, and so forth. For 50001, if we look at the number of certifications globally, as I mentioned, this standard was first published in 2011. So by 2017, which is the latest data, there's over 21,000 organizations globally that have become certified to 50001. So there's been a significant rise. Now the crime, it's mainly driven in Europe by far, the #1 country being Germany, followed by the UK. In North America, it's far less. So as of 2017, according to ISO survey, there's about 127 companies that are certified to 50001. And by North America, I mean US, Canada, and Mexico combined. Now probably the reason for that is because in Europe, they offer tax incentives for the companies that are certified to 50001. That doesn't exist here in North America. But there are those incentives that I just talked about, like the NRCan financial assistance and the DOE, the free online software tool that they offer, that are basically, especially at the federal level right now, they're encouraging industry and commercial institutions to adopt 50001 by offering those incentives. So the Lloyd's of London, which is an insurance company based in the UK, they published a report back in 2010 called Sustainable Energy Security. And essentially they said businesses which prepare for and take advantage of the new energy reality will prosper, and failure to do so can be catastrophic. Thank you very much. That's my contact information on there. There is actually this link that I've provided there too. If you go on there, it's basically provides, on our website, we do have a free online self-assessment that you can use to see how you conform to the requirements of the 50001 standard. It's basically just a checklist, so it can help you with that. And we also have brochures about 50001 as well that you can download from that site as well. Thank you.
Hey, Fred?
Yes?
Can you talk just briefly about maintaining your certification?
Yeah. So basically, I'll kind of explain in terms of your certification is valid for 3 years. So the first time that you become certified is called the initial certification. And I can talk about a little bit, I'll just use some numbers as an example to kind of illustrate the point. So let's say the first year you are required, your audit's going to take, let's say, I don't know, 6 days, right? The second year is your surveillance audit. So the auditor will come back the second year, and it's going to be a third of the duration of your first audit. So it'll just be 2 days long. The third year, again, it'll just be 2 days long. Starting from the fourth year, then you're due for your recertification. Your recertification will be 2/3 of your initial, the duration of your initial certification. So your recertification will be 4 days long. And then again, your surveillance will be 2 days and 2 days. That's how it kind of proceeds.
Is it based on your processes, or your processes and results, or your result, or a combination of both?
So it's basically based on, it's a formula that's used. It's based on a standard called ISO 50003. And that's the guideline that certification bodies have to use in order to calculate the duration of the audit and how long it's going to take. And basically, it is a formula. It's not a very complicated formula. But the 4 main variables are your annual energy consumption, your number of energy sources, your significant energy uses, and your number of effective employees. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just was wondering if you could just add a bit of clarification with the superior energy performance aspect.
Yeah. That is something that I decided to kind of not to talk about it, but since you asked, I'll discuss that too for sure. So the U.S. Department of Energy, they have a program called the Superior Energy Performance. So how that works essentially, in a nutshell, is first a company needs to be certified to 50001. And then they will need to basically demonstrate energy performance improvements of greater than 0% now. It's going to change. It's going to be greater than 0%. So that's kind of easy to achieve. So even if you can demonstrate you've been able to achieve performance improvements of, let's say, 0.1%, then you've met the requirements of the superior energy performance. But you also have to get points in order to get like silver, bronze, and gold recognitions. I can't quite remember how the point system works, but like if you achieve, I think, at least 25 points, you get bronze recognition. So how do you gain points? Just to give you an example, even if a company decides to conduct a feasibility study in terms of installing a combined heat and power, you'd be eligible for 1 point. Even if you just do a feasibility study, forget about even installing it. Now, if you decide to actually move forward and install cogen, that's an additional 4 points. Just to give you an example, that's how you can accrue points and then basically reach the level that's required to either receive bronze, silver, bronze, or gold recognition. Again, for bronze, I think you have to have at least a minimum of 25, but that's definitely on the DOE's website. If you just Google basically US DOE Superior Energy Performance, all the information is on that site regarding that program. The reason I didn't want to talk about it was because, as I said, first companies need to be certified to 50001. Usually when, we also do superior energy performance certification as well, but if, when we go and present both 50001 and superior energy performance together, it might be a little overwhelming for organizations saying, well, that's a lot of requirements. So at first I just start out with 50001. And then, if there's, then we can kind of discuss it. But yeah, thanks for asking, and that's basically how that program works.
Any last questions? Okay, thanks for that. All right, just wanted to thank Lynn and Fred again. Thanks everybody for coming. We have the room till 10, so feel free to stick around and network. Help us prevent food waste by finishing all the food and eating as much as you can. Thanks again for coming. Please, if you're not already subscribed to PPG's newsletter, please do that on our website. We'll have more breakfast series events throughout this year, touching on topic areas of energy, water, waste, play engagement, transportation. And we will have other networking events and opportunities and programs coming up throughout the year. So thanks everybody for coming.